Now that I finished my reading recaps for 2024 and we only have a week to go until this is Trump's America again, I need to get back on the bandwagon of doing my Project 2025 videos. Before we get into that really depressing information, I do want to say I have gone ahead and created a YouTube account under Irreverent Reader. If this app does shut down, I definitely want to stay connected to all you guys, and that seems like the best option. With what Zuckerberg has said in the last few weeks, I don't feel comfortable really promoting myself on Facebook or Instagram. While I totally don't look forward to transitioning to a whole new social media because I think TikTok is the best one out there, that's where you can find me going forward if it becomes necessary. Today I'm going to be talking about housing and transportation. We're going to start with housing first. Their stated goal is that they want to eliminate all actions and programs that fail to encourage upward mobility and economic advancement through household self-sufficiency. So what does that mean? Because that's kind of a mouthful. Basically, they want to start by implementing reforms that reduce the implicit anti-marriage bias in housing assistance programs. So, just like everything else, their focus on the nuclear family is what's most important. They want to implement maximum term limits for residents in PBRA and TBRA and housing first, so that there are not permanent interventions into homelessness. Their cruelty towards those who are unhoused is just so hard to wrap my mind around. They also want to install a HUD task force consisting of politically appointed personnel to identify and reverse all actions to advance any progressive ideology. They want to prohibit non-citizens, including all mixed status families, from living in federally assisted housing. Local welfare organizations should step in and provide the housing in such cases. On top of that, they want to also deny federally subsidized homes and loan access to all non-U.S. citizens. And so what initiatives are they going to use to meet these goals? They state that Congress should prioritize any and all legislative support for the single-family home. Home ownership forms the backbone of the American dream. Localities, rather than the federal government, must have a final say in zoning laws and regulations, and a conservative administration should oppose any efforts to weaken single-family zoning. There is such a problem with only single-family zoning. First of all, it's unaffordable for some people to own their own home. Secondly, there's the problem of urban sprawl. That is damaging the environment. It is making our places more ugly to live in. It causes greater reliance on vehicles. I read The Geography of Nowhere last year, and while I wouldn't recommend that book specifically because of the author being problematic, check out Jeff Speck's Walkable Cities. I have not read it myself, but it is on my to-read list. And that book should help us understand why urban sprawl is so detrimental, not only to people, but the environment and animals as well. Following that, they want to reverse property appraisal and valuation equity policies because it undermines the integrity of real estate appraisals, or so they say. What this actually does is this law keeps Black neighborhoods from being unfairly valued. They're going to pile onto that because they also want to repeal the affirmatively furthering fair housing regulation, which is essentially what enabled us to get rid of redlining. Outside of that, we see a lot of hypocrisy here in them talking about solving the housing crisis, but yet they want to eliminate the new housing supply fund. This is the fund that gives states money to build more affordable homes. I want to revise loan limit determinations. This next thing that I'm about to say makes me laugh so hard because it is so, you can punch holes in it so easily. But ultimately they say that the FHA should increase the mortgage insurance premium for all products above 20-year terms to encourage wealth-building home ownership opportunities that can be best accomplished through shorter duration mortgages. Us millennials have already had such a hard time navigating this absolutely corrupt housing market, and yet they want to continue to make it harder and harder for the next generation to own their own homes. All right, deep breath. Moving on to transportation now. I first want to touch on just general overall spending because right now they're saying transportation loses them so much money that they need to start brainstorming ways in order to gain money in that sector. They want to start off by removing subsidies for transit spending through the federal government. They want states and localities to bear the entire burden of investment costs. If you're from Michigan like me and we had the Build Back Better plan, you know how much money we have gotten from the federal government to improve our road systems. It has made a absolutely huge and staggering difference, and that They want that all to go away. They also want to reduce the Federal Highway Administration's mission away from ferry boat terminals, hiking trails, biking lanes, and sidewalks, and return that to local governance and funding. So what does that mean again? Greater dependence on cars. Ultimately, they want to turn that cost back on everyday people. They want to consider implementing airport landing fees, toll charges on roads, and per gallon taxes on gasoline. Oh, hey, you know how you voted Trump in because you wanted lower gas prices? Surprise! Getting into specifics here, looking at aviation, they want to privatize the TSA and de-unionize it. And if you've already been scared of everything that's going on with Boeing right now, they also want to stop the use of the International Civil Aviation Organization to increase standards on airplanes. And to solve the pilot shortage, they want to reduce the required flight hours in training. I didn't know this before, but there is a program called the Essential Air Service Program that subsidizes flights to over 200 small airports in the United States that are not otherwise commercially viable. And that just means removing another mode of transportation for tons of people who depend on these flights. In rail, they also want to decrease safety standards. The current Federal Railroad Administration requires a crew size of 2, even when there is no operational need for the second. They want to reduce that down to 1. They also want the proposed emergency escaped breathing apparatus requirements cut because the costs outweigh the minimal benefit. Now, I know it's been a while since our last catastrophic train crash, but if you remember, that has been substantially increasing in the last few years. There's a great John Oliver episode about it. I think they're going to have a little trouble with this next one since Elon is like pseudo-president right now, but they want to end all federal mandates and subsidies of electric vehicles. They also want to reduce the proposed fuel economy levels to 2020 levels, where it was the fleet-wide average of 35 miles per gallon. Just want to close with saying that they blame raising the national fuel economy standards on the increase in car accidents and death in the United States, because the higher price disincentivizes people from purchasing newer and safer vehicles. If that was honestly your concern, that people didn't have the money to purchase newer and safer vehicles, I think there's better ways to go about it.